Hola, familia.
Hi, this is James Nobo.
This is Salon Gaganube.
Yo, this is David Mashamela. You're on
Happy Dayz.
Happy Dayz?
Happy Dayz.
Happy Dayz podcast.
It's a happy day to have a good day.
It's always a good day to have a happy day, and we're celebrating continuously Women's Month, and this is the last feature for Women's Month. Not that we're stopping to celebrate women, but this is precisely the last feature where we're wrapping up with politics, business, and the likes, and you know, okay, who's the better person for that? Precisely, Mpho Louise. Yeah, Phalatse. But Louise, I mean, it's like you're sounding like those grannies who are gossipy. You know, with even it's good, it's nice. There's Mom Louise or Gog Louise.
I wanted to get rid of that name, but I did not succeed.
I wanted to find out, good, you like that name?
I don't. My mom named me after her mother.
Oh, okay.
And I'm an only child. So when I turned 16, when I applied for my ID, I saw a great opportunity to get rid of this name because I never used it.
Okay.
And I had the conversation with her, and she emotionally blackmailed me properly. If I had another child, I'd give it to them.
Yes.
So I was like, fine, I'll keep it.
But it's good to have you, man, and happy Women's Month.
Thank you.
If I may ask, how did you spend your Women's Day? I know it's far past, but it's days to remember and cherish.
I was at home with my family, best place to be as a woman.
Yeah, definitely.
My family spoiled me, my husband brought me breakfast in bed, and we probably sat and watched The Crown or something,
okay.
some of the things we enjoyed together.
I know everyone is talking about Lembe this time around.
I haven't watched it yet. Yeah.
So before you actually moved to Mabopane, you stayed. I like to say everyone, even me included, we have been raised by our grandmother and partly our mothers and partly our actual parents. So if you can check, most of the people who are actually groomed and molded by grannies, they are well groomed in a way. So just take us with you and your grandmom in Hebron, just somewhere in Pretoria.
Yes.
Is it Hebron or Hebron?
Hebron.
Oh, Hebron. It's a question of zebra and zebra.
Yes.
Okay.
So Hebron is actually my father's home. You know, back in the day, Mama never kotisa.
Okay.
So my mom lived with the paternal parents, right? Or rather, no, her in-laws, my dad's family.
Okay.
And so I was born there. Shortly after they got married, and I stayed there. When they moved to Mabopane, the challenge was that there was no creche in Mabopane.
Oh, okay. You were that young?
Yes,
okay.
And there was a creche in Hebron.
Okay.
So the decision was made to leave me with grandma, so I could go to creche. And I had a cousin who was a year older, so it was easy. We went to creche together, you know, and so that's how I got to stay behind with my grandmother. But I saw them often because Mabopane and Hebron are not so far from each other.
Okay.
So I didn't miss my parents much.
Yeah.
But it was great because I grew up with cousins. It's always nice to grow up with cousins, especially when you're an only child. So I have very fond memories of going to creche with my cousin, crying in the morning because they forced me to finish my tea, and I don't like tea.
And they don't
I still
like
don't
that.
like tea today because they used to force me to drink it. But it was really fond memories. And a lot of people came out of that village. I mean, JJ Davan is from Hebron.
Oh, Jay.
Katlego Danke, we went to the same creche at the same time. In fact, at some point, when I moved to Mabopane to be with my parents, Katlego's dad used to drive us to creche because he used to work at the Hebron College at the time. So it really brought us some key figures in society today.
But what was it really like to be Magriza? Because I know Magriza, hey, I tell an endugu. At the same time, it's nice to pheka nomagriza and nidle nikhama benches nihlale ngaphansi kwesihlahla and talk inganekwane. What do you call inganekwane? Stories, telling stories, yes. Yeah, how was it really like? Because I'm very much fond. Umuntu makathi ukhuliswa umagriza, Yeah, mahulu man. It's a leading thing in Pilonia.
It was lovely. Like I said, there were a lot of people at home, cousins, other aunts, my uncle. So it was a really lovely, lively place. My fondest memory. So my grandmother died when I was young.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but my fondest memory of her was she caught me this beautiful bird.
Oh.
It was colorful. We used to call them Dinonyanza Christmas.
Yeah.
It's very colorful. And she caught it for me, she gave it to me, and it was just such a precious moment.
Yeah, I just remember of Judith Sipumoni talking to Nyonyan.
Really?
There's a song about that.
Yeah, so that's my fondest memory of my grandmother. But of course there'll be others. She was very religious. She loved to sing, she loved to pray. She was fun to be around. Yeah, but like I said, she didn't live long. So she died when I was in primary school still.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that transition moving from Hebron to Mabubane, living with the actual now parents, how was it like living with the mom and dad?
It was very different. So my parents were both educators, right?
Yeah.
And so they turned the home into a teaching lab. So in my room, everything was labeled. The door was labeled door, the wall was labeled wall. Yeah, so I lived in a teaching lab.
Okay.
And so that was for me the biggest change. From being with grandma was fun, being with parents was more, you need to study.
Yeah.
My parents were big on education, everything was a lesson. And so that was the big change. Now, here's what's interesting is that I was young. My parents felt I had stayed behind too long, so they wanted me to be with them. But there was still no creche in Mabubane. So they went and negotiated with the primary school. At the age of 4, I started grade 1. But the agreement was that I would repeat the following year. What then happened was at the end of the year, I was top of my class. And so I had to proceed. So I actually started school at age 4. By default, because of this arrangement gone wrong.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I was very, very young. I had older girls take care of me. They liked to pick me up like a little doll, and I was tiny. So everyone was just fascinated with this tiny little thing at school. What are you doing here? And that's really how my childhood in Mabubane started.
And you started doing engineering before you even moved to be a qualified or doing your other stuff in terms of labeling you as a doctor now?
So that was also quite interesting how that happened. I had this guidance teacher, Mrs. Tema, in high school. I went to Loreto Convent in Pretoria. It's a girls-only school. Mrs. Tema was this dream woman. She had everything a girl could ever dream of, well taken care of by her husband. And we all envied her life.
Yeah.
And one day I asked her, she was the guidance teacher, so I said, what does your husband do? And she said, my husband's a chemical engineer.
Okay.
I said, well, what does he do? She said, he makes chemicals for swimming pools. I said, okay, that sounds easy. I want to do that.
Okay.
And so she started working with me to apply to universities, to apply for bursaries. And I got accepted at Wits, and yes, I spent 2 years trying to be an engineer. Big mistake, biggest mistake of my life, because I am not an engineer.
Yeah.
And in my second year, I realized that I shouldn't have done that. And that's when the journey towards another career started, through career guidance. Proper now counseling with an educational psychologist. I did the battery of tests and everything to make sure I don't make a mistake this time.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up in there.
So you started in Wits?
I started at Wits with my engineering. Now, when I studied medicine, after wasting 2 years, it was a big shock to my system, right? I'd always been a performer in school. Now suddenly I'm behind. My colleagues are going to their final year. They were doing 3-year degrees, and I now have to start a new degree. So a part of me needed to recalibrate, go back to my base, which is home. So I went to Medunsa because it was close to Mabubane. My parents were still there. So in my first year, I actually lived with my parents. During the adjustments, just dealing with the whole.
Because I understand, I also got the information that you also were so much in love with working with people, and that actually made you to go to be a medical doctor in a way.
So when I was doing engineering, I had a sponsor, right? My sponsor was SAPI, and during vacation, they would take us to their operations for vacation work. And that for me was actually when I realized this is not for me, because they gave me overalls, they gave me safety boots, a hard hat, the whole gear. They put me in an effluent plant in a park home office by myself.
Yeah, as tiny as you are.
Designing, I think I was designing training material or something. The work was actually interesting, but I hated the fact that I was alone. I hated it didn't feel like me. I didn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. It was like, I can't live or work in an environment where I don't interact with people as part of my job. It's not who I am. And for me, that's probably the first time I realized I'd made a wrong choice. And yes, when I spoke to the educational psychologist and I did the test, she actually said to me, how did you end up there? It's not you. You know, you're very people orientated. And so she didn't prescribe that I study medicine. She said you would be happy doing anything in the health sciences. So I could have gone with psychology, physiotherapy, or anything in the health sciences, because that would guarantee me contact with people. But one thing that was also strong in my assessment was business, my love for business. And so initially I thought I was going to do industrial psychology because I thought it brings the two together. But through a family friend who was working at Medusa at the time, you know, because when you're not sure what you want to do,
end up doing a whole lot of things before you even choose.
You listen to everyone, and she came and she said, why don't you do medicine? You know, and I said, actually, why not? It's still in line with what the psychologist said. And so I applied and I got accepted, and that's how I made the change.
I can't imagine. There's a lot we'll talk about. It's Happy Days. We're talking to Dr. Mpho Phalatse, and there's a lot indeed. We're coming back, and Chilo, sicela amanzi ethu Nkosi yami bandla. Senzeni kangaka. And then we're coming back as we drink water. All right, just a break. A pause.
The buzz of the city is what inspires heart.
Hola familia, es Wakarota Zeta Breads, and this is Happy Days on Podcast. Just a young reminder, a quick reminder, please don't forget that as I said before, we're coinciding with Women's Month, so it's only best that we get to ask our women in this particular topic, okay? So anyways, hi, what's your name, my sister? Hi, Mpho Phalatse. I have a question for you. Amanda DuPont, Yachola 99, Joop, the whole case, the whole rape case. What do you think about it? Do you think Uguti Joop, mele bamkhiphe vele kuyachola 99, is it okay ukuthi bamkhiphile just because now he has this pending rape case, yeah, rape? Or mele bamgcine khona lapho because he's doing a good job, you know, he's saving the country njengoba abantu bachola. What do you think? What's your take on this? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm gonna do
so when ucabanga ukuthi the whole thing, it's a scheme that they're just doing it for attention and stuff. But don't you think? Oh, okay. But don't you think it's already Amanda DuPont has like clout? She's not doing it for clout because she's already there. So who do you think it's for attention, vele? Because already she's there. She doesn't have anything to lose. I keep it Joop. Don't you think?
Yeah, maybe we ask about it.
Yeah.
Now we're jail. I'm not on the show.
Yeah.
And then I got to say, I could TV actor pair on a show.
Yeah.
So some more.
Oh, so we have money.
Yeah, I'm going to Joop.
Okay.
My name is Mpho.
Right, Mpho, I have a question for you regarding the pending Joop case. I know that you know about it, and literally everyone knows about it. So, what can you tell me about the case? What do you think, Uguti, is happening with the case? What are your thoughts about the whole case itself? Like, Joop is he forcefully accused for rape? Is it fair, Uguti? Bati, urepile, and again, is it fair, Uguti Kunamanjo? Amanda DuPont just came out and Uguti, okay, urepile. And now other ladies are coming out to complain about the same thing. Is it fair that now people are now coming out after? And again, is it fair with Amanda DuPont after 2 years?
Well, in my honest opinion, like, okay, I don't know this whole story about but somehow I feel like he's been falsely accused. Either way, it might be true, But if he did do it, I think he needs to go back to jail. If he didn't do it, he also deserves justice for himself. And for the fact that Amanda Dupont kept quiet about this whole thing, why now? Why is she coming out now?
Yeah. So when your take is that you're not siding on any side, he should be Milabambope or Akmelangabambope. On your take, Uguti, why are people coming out now after such a long time? And again, it might happen with Velo Uyensile. And if that's the case, then Milebambam. Is that what you say?
Yeah,
so it's either ways.
Yeah, it's 50-50 honestly.
Yeah. Okay, no, thank you so much for your answer. Yeah, let's continue with other people. I hope with such situations, they can just come out on time, and speak about such situations, because, guys, it's so hard for a person who after 2 years. But again, on my side, I feel like it's understandable because it's not easy to come out. And again, I applaud Amanda Dupont for coming out and telling Abantu. And also those women, I hope that it's true, they really were raped. I think they're now trying to plot against him. And if it's like that, it's good they finally came out. It takes one person.
We don't laugh because we're happy. We're happy because we laugh.
But I would disagree. Back on Happy Days, and ngendlela right, it's a happy day to have a good day once more, and we have the water now. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, now we're okay.
Yeah.
We have the water. Thank you so much, Capella. I wanted to talk about the Cranfield College.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see you've also went there.
Yes.
and do the likes.
Yeah. So I qualified as a medical doctor in 2005.
Oh, okay.
And I went on to do my internship at Tembisa Hospital. And we were discouraged from applying to study further in the internship year. We were encouraged to focus on medicine because it's the first year that you have your own patients without another doctor supervising them. And so I didn't study that year. But the following year, that's my community service year, I actually registered to study further. Now, I always knew that I'm not going to see patients for the rest of my life. And I was worried that medical school only teaches you to manage a patient. It doesn't even teach you to manage a practice.
Yeah.
And so many doctors who don't have other skills outside of medicine are terrible practice managers. And they have to hire somebody to do that for them. So I wanted to get into more management type studies to balance my skill set. And I don't know how I discovered Cranfield. Actually, I don't remember, honestly. But I ended up at Cranfield College. And it was great because I got to mingle with people from different industries. I mean, my class, I studied project and program management.
Yes.
I started with an advanced diploma, went on to do a postgraduate diploma. And when my cohort proceeded to do the master's, it was a Master of Commerce in project and program management. I felt I was deviating too much, so I didn't go on to do the MCom, right? But I enjoyed being in a class with engineers, with accountants, with miners, people from different walks of life. For me, the discourse was so rich because of that. Because working as a doctor in a hospital, if you're not part of management, you're only dealing with the patient. So for me, it was wonderful to hear their experiences in the workplace. Some of them were already senior executives in the various companies they worked for. And I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot. In fact, a lot of that I applied it to my further studies in public health medicine. I applied it to my work as an NMC and even as a mayor. Much of that was from those studies. We did a lot of MBA modules. We used a lot of similar textbooks that were used by MBA students. So it was a really great program and I loved it thoroughly.
So that deviation from the Cranfield College, is that the very same one that made you to even start your business?
Well, I was always
because you were in business.
I was always interested in business. Let me tell you how I started being in business. It was in primary school. You're going to laugh. So I think we were in standard 3.
Oh.
A friend of mine, the family ran a tuck shop, a spaza shop.
Yeah.
And
this is run about my friend, man.
Yes. So she used to steal stuff from her parents. and bring it to school and give it to us to share, and we would eat the stuff. But we didn't know she had stolen the stuff. So one day the parents came to school to complain that, our child is taking chunks of sweets and snacks.
What's wrong with that?
What's going on? And we were called to the office, and we had to account now, and our parents were called. And my parents realized what was going on, and they thought maybe it's time to introduce her to money making. And so they started buying me packets of sweets.
Okay.
So I started selling those in primary school. In middle school, I was a photographer. So I had those cameras, you remember, with the film?
Yeah. Okay.
I used to take pictures of my fellow learners during break, on school trips, and you had to take the film to
and then we'll
a place where they wash the film. So I did that. My next business, I think my parents bought me a popcorn machine. So I've done a lot of different things over the years, obviously age appropriate.
Okay. Yes.
The ultimate business before I went into politics, yes, I ran a business as now a professional, right, as a medical doctor. I went into disability medicine. I got contracts with SASSA in 2 provinces. I had Gauteng and Northwest that I serviced. I ended up focusing in the Northwest, and that's where a lot of things started changing for me. And soon I started realizing what was going on in other people's lives, underdeveloped, poor Northwest province. That's where I started asking myself, is what I'm doing enough? Should I be doing more? How can I contribute further to society?
So, but then you also worked with children who are affected, sexually abused in a way.
Yes.
That's where you were still in Alex.
So how did I get into medical legal work? I went to Wits to specialize in public health medicine. Now, when you're a specialist in training, you get to do commuted overtime. Normally, you do that overtime in your field of work, right? So if you specialize in to be a pediatrician, you do overtime in pediatrics. But public health was a tricky one because it's non-clinical. It's a non-clinical specialty. And so the question was, what overtime do we then do? We used to do port health. So port health is, if you go through the airport, for instance, during COVID, the people who check your temperature, who man those temperature scans, if there's anything wrong, they take you into a clinic, that's port health. So that used to be our overtime. I think for the first 1 or 2 years of my 4 years at Wits, and then they stopped us doing that. And we had to now look for something else to do because commuted overtime paid you extra on top of your salary. So it was also important in that respect. And for some of us who'd quit their business, every rand counted. And so we got into medical legal work. I think there was an opportunity at Hillbrow Community Health Center. And they said, well, we can train them in medical legal work. Those who are interested, they can do that. And that's how I got into it. So I did it for quite a few years. I did Hillbrow, Chris Hani Baragwanath and Tabby Singh, Tutugela Health Center. I did Discoverers in Roodepoort and ultimately Far East Rand Hospital in Springs.
So with Alexandra, because I know that is the actual experience that pulled you to politics, what were the challenges? Because I heard that you also played a role into changing the time, the service time in the hospital. So I was asking myself, how lama health professional bewengena nina phuma ngubani kan?
Let me explain what happened. So how I ended up working in Alex was I finished my 4 years at Wits, and I needed to work, right? I was not yet a specialist because I still had to do my exam, but I was out of the program because they only sponsor you for 4 years and then you must move and allow someone else to come in. And so I got an opportunity to work in casualty at Alex Clinic, and that's how I got to Alex. It was traumatizing, just seeing the level of trauma, the stab wounds, the gunshot wounds, the order of the day. You get involved in a car accident with an Avanza, those taxis. I learned if you ever get into an accident with an Avanza in Alex, just drive. Just drive, because chances of you getting stabbed while negotiating that you should go to a police station are very high. So those are the kind of things I was seeing. People got stabbed for their cell phones. Women got stabbed all the time. And it really made me so mad at government. I was like, something's wrong here. And if you drive around Alex and you look at how people live, you can't help but connect the dots. you know, that people's dignity has been stripped to a point where they're living together like animals, you know. And it saddened me. I cried for a week. I cried after a particular incident where 5 young men were shot, each one multiple times. In our casualty, 2 died. We transferred 3 to Shalamat, 2 died there, so only 1 survived. And that was for me the last straw. I knew I had to do something. I either had to leave
or do something about it.
And after talking to a few people, a colleague of mine was a member of parliament at the time. We had specialized together at Wits, and he said to me, Mpho, have you ever considered being a councillor? Maybe you can help the people of Alex. Because I was saying, what are you guys doing? You're sitting there in parliament. How are you helping these people? And I said, but I've got plans. And I did have plans. I was reopening my disability practice, and I had various other plans. I was establishing an NGO in Alex. I wanted to focus on substance abuse. And I said, but I've got plans. And he said, well, I plan to be a PR counsellor. It's part-time. You can still do other things. And that's how I applied to the Democratic Alliance to be a PR counsellor in Alex. But as you know, that's not what happened, because we ended up governing in a coalition. The mayor then was Herman Mashaba, and when he announced his mayoral committee, he decided I should help him out in health and social development.
And just maybe to move on and with your political, spectrum, and focus on you being a first woman mayor of Joburg. How does it really feel? I'm thinking to myself, it's also mayor of Joburg, no Khan.
I'm not as young as I look.
Yeah.
Firstly,
okay.
I'm 45 years old. I'm not ashamed
still young.
to say. I still think I'm an old gogo.
No, man.
Look, my eldest son is 20.
Okay.
So that's kind of my frame of reference. But anyway, it was a great honor. It really was. I don't take it lightly. I believe it was symbolic. It was not about me. It was saying to women that we too can be trusted.
Yes.
I can be trusted with the economic hub of this nation. So you can be trusted with something big. Keep believing, keep pushing, don't give up. It will happen. So yeah, a great honor indeed.
Because I see here when I was trying to check on your information here that you're the first woman to serve as a mayor of the metropolitan municipality, which was established, obviously, this is after the new dispensation 2000, and also the first black woman to serve as a mayor of the city of Joburg, and obviously following the footsteps of J.C. McPherson. That was the old days in the 1945.
Before the amalgamation.
Yeah,
so it's not even the same Johannesburg,
yes.
but it was Johannesburg nonetheless. So yes, with the amalgamation and the birth and establishment of Joburg Metro in 2000, you now have a new, bigger Johannesburg.
But before we talk, because I want to talk mainly about Johannesburg and what it is right now.
Right.
But maybe let's start by talking about the element of you being the DAPR councillor. But why DA?
So I was obviously coming out of academia, having spent 4 years at Wits, right? And I considered alignment in terms of policy, because I studied public health medicine, and policy development is a very big part of what we do. And so I wanted to be in an organization where I felt which was the right fit in terms of my own beliefs. 1, 2, I considered culture, which is the workplace culture. And I had fraternized with people from other political parties. I had been in situations and at events and functions, and you get to pick up the culture. And the best fit for me was the DA, because it had a very professional culture.
Look at that time.
And I wanted to feel, even if I'm working in a political space, I still wanted to feel like a professional. And that's very important to me even now. Which is why I hate what's happening in Johannesburg now, because it does not feel like a professional workspace, and I hate that. And that's how I ended up with the DA. I went on their website, I read most of their policies, and they made sense to me. The policies are based on empirical evidence, they're based on international best practice, they're not populist, they're really research based, and I liked that because I believed in that as an academic. And that plus the culture, it worked for me. But also, I joined the DA when Musi Maimane was leader.
I was about to say that.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was another influence.
Yeah.
Because I think if I had these two things, but during Helen's time, I don't think I would have taken the leap. I think I would have had trust issues, which is why I understand the trust deficit, because I suffered from the same. You know, I mean, coming from apartheid and having gone through the transition, 1991, 1994, it really takes a lot for a black person to trust, you know, and for me, it was easier. When Musi was leader of the party, I used to watch Parliament live to establish for myself, is he really the leader? Is he just a friend? And the more I saw him take charge and the more I saw him really lead the parliamentary caucus, the more I gained confidence that he was really the leader and that I could take the leap and be part of that formation.
Yeah, and then, but what do you say to the challenges that women have in politics, specifically here in this country? You know, because one will believe, or one will say, from the people who are your favorites, you know, people who enjoy or who believe that you have all the power and the motive to actually change everything, especially in Joburg since you were the mayor. But suddenly things just changed just that fast, you know. Once we were looking and hoping to see you, what do you do? And then you were changed.
So the fact that I did not last in office is a function of numbers. It's a function of just simply the electoral outcome, right? We never had the numbers to start with. I only had 26% of the vote going into the mayoral election. And by some miracle, I came out the mayor. But I always knew that I was in a vulnerable position, and that's why it took long to even appoint a mayoral committee, because the election of mayor was on the 22nd of November, 2021. The mayoral committee was only announced on the 13th of December.
Or December, yeah.
Right? Why? Because we knew we had to negotiate, get partners, help us get over the 50% plus one line, so that at least we're not as vulnerable anymore. So that's why. It's not because I'm a woman.
It's not because of the woman, okay.
I could have been a man, the same thing would have happened.
Okay.
We didn't have the numbers,
Yeah.
right? And that's my message to a lot of women, is that don't approach everything, but don't take your womanhood too.
Don't be personal.
And I don't want to say don't take it too seriously, because it is serious that you're a woman. It's a cherry on top.
Yeah, there's
but don't make everything about it.
Yeah.
Some things will happen to you because you're a human first, not because you're a woman. And that's really what happened. Now, if you talk about women in politics, I've heard this from other women in other political parties. It's a huge concern for me, where women have to sleep their way into positions, where they have to sleep their way to the top. I take that very seriously, having dealt with sexual assault. Any type of sexual act where you're not really consenting, but you're being coerced for whatever reason, it's wrong. It cannot be entertained, and I'd really like to encourage women to speak up when these things happen. I know that a lot of women find themselves challenged socioeconomically, and they don't even want to speak up because they don't want to lose the benefits that comes from such acts. But if we don't speak up, those acts will not stop. And there are political parties, I don't want to mention names, who practice this on a regular basis.
And some we know them.
Yeah, of course we know.
Yes.
Of course we know. Very disturbing indeed. It has got to stop. It's criminal, and it has to stop.
Yeah, man. So just to talk about your plans, take us through your plans. Say you were still a mayor right now, because obviously you were taken out of the office whilst you were still busy with your plans, and we didn't even see them materialize in a way.
True.
Yeah.
So we clearly outlined 7 priorities, which unfortunately for me, when I was campaigning for mayor, a lot of the things that I had planned to do actually ended up aligning with a lot of our coalition partners. So it was quite an easy process to put together those priorities. Firstly, it was getting the basics right. Basics meaning, if you look at Johannesburg, we've got a huge infrastructure backlog. Water, electricity, roads, infrastructure, and so on. And the city is decaying at a fast rate. And so a lot of residents during my campaign were just crying for a functional city, you know, and that's what it would take to get the city functional again. Make sure traffic lights are working, roads are not riddled with potholes, we've got water, we've got electricity, we've got security. So that was our first priority. It includes transport as well. Second priority was on safety and security. If you Google Johannesburg, one of the things that come up is Johannesburg safe?
Yeah.
And that talks to your tourism potential. It talks to your potential to attract foreign direct investment, you know, and so on. And so safety is important. And so we wanted to invest a lot in that. We had already started in that. The third priority was just the recognition that there's inequality in Johannesburg. As much as you've got the richest square mile on the African continent, in Johannesburg you also have the Alexandras, and you've got the poor, the marginalized, the vulnerable. And it was about identifying those groupings, making sure they have a voice and their needs are met. Our fourth priority was focusing on business, becoming a business-friendly city. A lot of people in business had challenges interfacing with the city. They found that the system was difficult to understand and to navigate. And it was about making it easy. So that was really talking to becoming a smart city as well, because it was about our processes, our systems, improving them and making things easy and reducing turnaround times for a lot of the business processes. So a lot of work was done, particularly in development planning and so on, towards that. It was also about SMME support, so also recognizing smaller businesses and ensuring that we've got the infrastructure to give them the support that they need. The next one was about being an inclusive city. Now, for a diverse city like Johannesburg, it's important, you know, to be inclusive in how we build. So human settlements was an important core driver of this priority, including community development. So we had to make sure that we've got inclusive neighborhoods, no longer just affluent suburbs and, you know, your poor areas, but can we bring the poor into those affluent areas? Can we bring them closer to work opportunities? But can we also have inclusive spaces, you know, with community development, with your multi-purpose centers and so on, places where you can work, where you can live, where you can play. And that's what the fifth priority was about. The sixth one was about being it was about good corporate governance, right? It was about the finances of the city being in good health. It was about fighting corruption. It was about ensuring that we re-engineer our systems, our processes, and so on. And then the last one was about us becoming a smart city. And yeah, I mean, that's what's happening globally, and we just wanted to make sure that we're not left behind as the economic hub of the country, but we also wanted even children in the townships to experience a smart city.
But taking over from the other party when you started, how did you find the finances? I'm very much interested on that one, you know.
There were huge challenges. There was a lot of looting that preceded our time, and it affected our ability to function. We had to make some difficult decisions. We made the decision to rebase the city's budget. I'm happy that when we were ousted, the current administration actually continued with that. However, we were not happy with the degree of rebasing. We thought they should have rebased even more. We had lots of debate around how far do we cut, you know, and we decided you need to be bold, just do it, you know, so that you set the city back on a positive trajectory. You had to cut massively. They didn't cut as massively as we would have liked, and that's why we didn't support their budget. But those are some of the decisions we made. We were starting to have conversations about letting go of certain mandates that were not core to a municipality as per the constitution and the various laws that define what we do and what we don't do as the different tiers of government. The city was carrying a lot of responsibility that belonged to the province or to national, and we were doing it because it made us look good, right? So if you look at sports, the arts, recreation, we invest a lot in that, and yet it's an unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
You know, and so we were starting to have those conversations with National Treasury. So I had commissioned a study. I'd asked the finance MMC to collect data on all the unfunded mandates in the city so that we could categorize them. There were things, of course, that we had invested too much to let them go. And there the conversation was going to be devolution. So we were going to demand that the function be devolved to us and then we received the funding directly from equitable share from National Treasury. So that would have been the conversation. But there were others where we could afford to let them go, right? Back to the core mandate holder who's getting the funding. So that was again a way of rationalizing the finances and bringing back order in that space. So a lot of work was happening. We'd had a series of workshops with National Treasury. I was very happy about the relationship that we had formed with them. They were helping us understand how we can do more with the little that we have. For instance, they complained that Johannesburg is not spending even the free money that they're getting. So there's grants that you get as a government. And we started looking at why is that. And a lot of it had to do with our own internal processes. So we had to, again, start re-engineering those processes to improve our ability to spend our grant. Because when you spend grant funding, you're then able to attract more grant funding, right? Even from municipalities that don't spend. So when adjustment comes, you're able to attract that fund, that kind of fund. We also looked at how we could better use private sector money. So we were growing the Triple P space. The city has a Triple P office, public-private partnership office. And we were starting to attract partners to take over some of the work that we could not do because of limited funding. So a lot of exciting work was happening, and it's really a shame that we could not see it through. But given time, we would have been able to turn the city's finances around.
Well, for me, there are three elements that really need us to actually focus on right now. The issue of safety, I'm sure you must have heard, we've actually touched based on it whilst we're speaking of air, that you feel now Joburg is so unsafe, you know, and well, people have the chance to go to the malls to shop elsewhere, you know. But I mean, for the fact that Joburg is a core, the financial hub of the country itself, not necessarily just Joburg on its own. So what do you say about safety? Because it's you hear a lot of stories of people who don't want to go to Joburg, and I'll tell you other reasons that make them to actually not to go to Joburg. But let's talk mainly about safety in Joburg.
Okay, safety is everything, right? If you're talking to a foreign investor and you're saying come and invest in Johannesburg, they want to know, is it safe? Can I establish operations? Will my employees be safe? And so on. It's very important. Just for our functionality as a whole. Now, what we had started doing with that is, again, forming the right partnerships. So we worked very closely with the SAPs, with the Hawks, and various other law enforcement agencies. We had a great working relationships. We were meeting often. We were working on the city safety strategy as part of a pilot project for national. And the idea was that we design a model that would work for Johannesburg. But in the interim, we were starting to do a lot of joint operations. And the idea behind that was really to make better use of limited resources. So JMPD, SAPs, pulling their resources together, we have more to work with and we can achieve more. So that was exciting. We did a lot of joint raids with the provincial commissioner, the district commissioner, very successful. They were bringing their drones, we were bringing our men, and we were just pulling all resources and going into communities. And there was a lot of positive feedback and really great outcomes from those initiatives. Again, given time, we would have been able to do a lot more. We would have been able to see Johannesburg become much safer.
And then we talk more on the informal businesses, because obviously you need to balance the economy. You can't just focus on corporate businesses. Also, the guys who are just down the street there, they are really, by paying tax, obviously, playing a huge role. But now you see so we are supposed to the issue of bylaws there and informal businesses, how does it relate?
So we were actually in the process of regularizing that space. Again, something we're very proud of. We managed to approve the informal trade policy of the city for the first time. This policy was actually drafted by Councillor Leonard when we were in office before, in the 2016 administration when she was MMC Economic Development. And Councillor Mbundu then took it over now as MMC under my mayorship. and we managed to put it through council. Now that was very exciting, a positive step forward. This was recognizing that informal trade is important, right? With unemployment as high as it is, we're not going to absorb every job seeker in corporate or in government, and a lot of jobs will be created through informal trade, but it needs to be done properly and legally. Informal trade in the CBD of Johannesburg was associated with crime, as an example. So if you take a walk through the CBD, you'll notice that where there's the greatest amount of littering and just the greatest amount of crime is where there's informal trade. In areas where there's no informal trade, you won't find it as much. It's manageable, and Pick It Up is managing to keep those spaces clean. So we were in the process with development planning of identifying, in fact they had already identified demarcated areas that we were going to move informal trade to. But it's a process because there's legalities around it, and there were already issues with SERI, with how things were done in economic development and trying to resolve this. And I don't know if you followed, there was a bit of a spat between myself and the NMC at the time, and some disagreements, but we were trying to align and ensure that we do things legally so that they can be sustained, our solutions. And that's how we were going to support informal trade, but also keep the city clean and orderly.
And mostly, obviously, the one that I'm going to mention now is everyone's lips. The issue of foreign nationals hijacking our buildings. What's really going on there?
The issue
And
of
how
hijacked-
did we get to that point? Really?
Yeah. So the issue of hijacked properties has been left for too long. We started fighting this again in the 2016 administration, where under GFIS, the city's Group Forensic and Investigation Services Unit, we had a hijacked properties unit, and raids, ongoing raids would happen where they would raid these buildings to find out who's staying there, who owns the building. Once the owner has been identified, then there would be talks with the city on whether or not they want their building back or whether they're willing to hand it over for redevelopment. And we had a scheme through the JPC, the Joburg Property Company, where we were attracting private property developers to adopt these buildings, redevelop them, and so on. So that program started in the 2016 administration, and we continued with that program when we took over in 2021. And the idea was one building at a time, we start to reclaim them. One of the biggest challenges we had was with temporary emergency accommodation, right? Because the law says when you evict somebody, you need to provide them with right?
alternative.
We simply did not have enough for the amount of properties that we had to reclaim and restore. I had started engagements with the Minister of Home Affairs, because what we found on our raids is that immigration didn't have enough staff to cope with the frequency of our raids. And so we had started having engagements about, and in fact we had agreed, and unfortunately this was shortly before my ousting, that we had identified several areas where we needed to form partnerships, and hijacked buildings was one, where we were forming a partnership with the Home Affairs so that when we go out into our raids, we've got enough resources. They take care of all undocumented migrants and reducing the demand for temporary emergency accommodation and making it easier then to reclaim our buildings faster, and then we were going to throw them into the JPC scheme for redevelopment. So again, another exciting project that never saw the light of day because we got ousted.
Because I was about to ask about that, unregistered foreign nationals, that personally, not necessarily about the DA, personal, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about laba besikhuluma ngabo conscious babiza abo my friend, coming in and really, because I can imagine, I've never been to other places where, but I'm just imagining, can you go to let's say Kenya and have a spaza there, and what is the government, what do you think the government has done to actually for us to get to this point?
So there was a lot of neglect, particularly within the Home Affairs, a lot of neglect at our borders, a lot of corruption as well at our borders. I must commend Minister Motsoaledi. I have to say this. The old man is trying. Sorry, I called him an old man. Sorry, Minister, but he's trying. He's really
he's still
pushing.
Old, though,
He's
okay, continue.
He's pushing.
You're going to edit that one, don't worry. We're going to try and edit.
He's really pushing hard. And, our first engagement on this, he took time, almost lecturing, right? Taking us through what he's having to deal with and what he has done to deal with all the various aspects of the challenge. And he's making some headway. Given time, I do believe he'll get it right. But the problem is huge. And the biggest challenge is that there's no agreement, even amongst leadership. We once had a DG for Home Affairs who came to partner with the city in addressing the challenge with undocumented migrants. And one of the things he said is that we've got great policies, we've got great laws, we can't implement them because there are disagreements. For instance, with the DTI, that the Minister of Business may feel like you're affecting my sector if you start regularizing this too much, or tourism, And so it was interesting to hear that even internally within leadership, there's not always agreement on what ought to happen. And that's a big challenge, because if we don't agree, we're not going to fix the problem. We need to be resolute about what we are doing. We need to be on the same page and move as one. I believe that Minister Motsoaledi is the right person to do that. I believe that he'll be able to drive this. He's already making headway, and I'm very proud of the work he's doing. I was really looking forward to working with him in Johannesburg. We had some great plans. And it's a pity that we could not see those materialize.
A pity, man, But as we're closer to wrapping up, next year, 2024, election time, we'll be holding kissing babies, the parties. But what do you say will win the elections? Or in a scale of 10, ANC, EFF, DA, where do you put them?
Nobody's going to win the election.
It's going to be that coalition thing.
We're going to end up with a coalition.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, the question is...
Is it working though?
Which currently, no, it's not. It's not working currently.
Because I was speaking to Utahemen, he was sitting right at that seat, telling me, coalition, if it's coalition, I can only work, I can't work with the EFF nationally, I can only work with the EFF locally. So you see, there's this back and forth thing, and people and egos and all that. So I don't think personally coalition will work. What do you think?
Let's just say I hope it works.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of work
But it's
happening.
just the routes that the country will take anyway.
We don't have a choice. I mean, that's the writing is on the wall. Nobody's going to win the election. Okay. Yeah. Projections suggest that there's not going to be an outright winner, because the ANC is not going to go above 50% this time.
So the time for the election is over.
What do you mean the time for the election is over?
I mean the time for the ANC. I'm sorry.
Well,
The good times.
Yes, the good times are over. The good times of monopolizing, being a majority, those times are over. There are a lot of players now, and unfortunately the ANC has not always delivered on its promise. There's a lot of disappointment amongst the electorate, and so yes, unfortunately that's going to affect the ANC in the 2024 election. But there are many different possible permutations of coalitions, and you could very well still end
We
up...
have producers who don't know the studio rules, It's amazing.
You could very well still end up with a coalition that features the ANC. It's still a possibility. If you look at what's happening at a local level, we've seen the ANC and the EFF working closely together. We hear different reports, in the media. The ANC says we want to move away from working with the EFF, but we see them continue to work with the EFF in our municipality. There's a motion of no confidence in Johannesburg this coming week, and we hear people saying our coalition is intact, and that's the ANC and the EFF, the same ANC and the EFF that have been saying, where the NC has been saying we want to move away from working with the EFF. So you don't really know where people stand.
What's going, to happen.
People say a lot of things, do something else.
Yes.
it's
Because I was
very
about
concerning.
to ask that, do you agree to say politicians are liars, in a way?
Okay, firstly, I'm a politician and I'm not a liar.
Okay. Okay. Susanje wena da.
So
Yeah.
as a general statement, I would say no. It would be unfair, right? But yes, there is a propensity to be economic.
I mean, you
with the
just
truth.
mentioned that you won't be sure, and say this person will stay with us. You'll find the person, doing that cross, or what do you call it? Where you cross
Floor crossing.
Floor crossing.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of flip-flopping, but again, there are a lot of variables that people aren't aware of, right? I may want to go in one direction, but I'm not an individual. I function within an organization with structures and leadership structures, and decisions are made as a collective. So again, it doesn't mean that if I drive what the party is doing, I necessarily agree with it. I may have been debating for something else. So, and I may appear to be flip-flopping, but I'm not. I'm towing the party line. So there's also that to be considered. But there is a lot of flip-flopping nonetheless. Trust is a very rare commodity in politics. You can't trust anyone.
So, but how is it like to work with John Steenhuisen?
Well, I don't work with John now. I'm not caucus leader anymore, so I don't really
You
interface.
worked with him.
I did. I worked with him. Although I must say I worked more with Helen. So
Because
what-
I'm trying to avoid the question everyone wants to ask, or wants me to ask, which is the DA party ngathi ayithanda abantu sort of. Because I know people are waiting for that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just say that between John and Helen, they had decided to divide municipalities, and one would support some and another would support others. So I got Helen, right? So I worked a lot with Helen and not much with John, except where, for instance, we were discussing coalitions in general and he was part of those meetings. But I worked on day-to-day, the person who was supporting me was Helen. That's one. Two, on your question about whether the DA doesn't like people, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, just to put it lightly.
You can say it. You can say what people are saying.
Yeah.
So people are saying the DA is a racist.
Yes.
party. You can say it.
Okay. You know about it?
Of course I know about
okay,
it.
cool.
You know, every interview I get asked that question. In fact, if you didn't ask me that question, I was gonna think, what happened to him?
Okay.
Everybody asks that.
Yeah, this is a family podcast.
Right.
Yeah, so into Sasquem.
Okay, good for you. But do I think the DA is a racist organization? No, I don't. Do I think there are racist elements within the DA? Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
And that's where we must differentiate the party from some elements within the
okay.
party. Yes. So I definitely think there are elements in the party that are racist. I don't think the organization is racist. If I look at its policies, its values, its principles, no, there's no evidence of racism. You know, even just the fact that we condemn racism as a party. So if anyone is found to be racist, they will be dealt with. But I will not sit here and say there are no racists in the DA. I'd be lying.
Because they sometimes use the nice element of taking someone out by taking that person to school.
No, that's not true. It's a myth. You mean the Harvard myth?
Yeah.
No, it's a myth. So if I went to school now, which I could do, you know,
Bangaqeda nje this podcast Monday. Mpho, Dr. Mpho, please. Do you want to go to Harvard? From that interview you did there on Happy Days.
imagine. The DA is a meritocratic organization. So by its disposition, it will always attract academics,
Okay.
right? Because like I said to you, our culture aligns. If you're an academic, you align easily with the DA culture. So it will attract such people. And once you're in politics, it's very difficult to study, okay? Because you're so busy. Politics is hectic. And if you're an academic and you had paused your studies because you're in politics, when you take a back seat, of course you want to study because it's a natural thing to do for
Okay.
you. So it's a myth.
Let me not be hard on you on that one. But maybe as we're wrapping up, I know that it's a pity, man, I didn't have that. I know that your favorite meal is bohoba leading and hard body.
Ooh.
Oh. So, the tini is that sour pap, ne?
The brown one.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Ngikuyibona nje ngithi hayi indaba.
I'm Tswana.
Ngizoyizama.
So in the Tswana tradition, it's big.
Yeah.
So my maternal grandmother lived in Rooival. I don't know if you know Jericho.
Jericho, yeah.
And they were very traditional. So growing up, if there was a wedding, I literally watched people mill ting, mabele. So we had kika. Kika it's the thing that they put the raw mabele in.
Okay.
And then the two women would actually mill it. And we would watch this production of
So it
ting.
used to excite you, yeah.
Very exciting. But also the taste, it's just so beautiful. I love it. I grew up eating it and I still enjoy it today.
I'll take you to my favorite place,
Where's
Sakums.
that?
Yeah, Sakums.
I was about to say that
Yeah,
I go to
we'll go to
Sakumzi
Sakums for that.
tea.
Yeah.
And they also love hard body chicken.
Yes,
Or
I
restaurant
know.
meat. What do you call it?
Yeah, hard body, just yes, yeah, hard body.
I love that.
Okay,
Yeah.
and obviously, I'm thinking, I'm confused. Why you are so young, but you love Ella Fitzgerald?
My dad.
Okay.
Yeah. So my dad was a jazz
Which
collector.
song from Ella Fitzgerald? I'm a jazz person.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I am, definitely.
Okay,
You're Nina
let
Simone.
me- yeah.
You can come to Jean Amos. I'm a jazz person. I was presenting jazz on radio sometime.
Oh, lovely. So let me tell you a song that I relate to coalition politics.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
You know the song about let's call the whole thing off? You say potato.
Oh, yes,
I say
yes.
potato.
Yeah.
I relate that to coalition politics because sometimes we fight
Say
about
something else and then
about
do something
non-issues,
else. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
but calling it off is not worth it because if you call it off, then there's no government. So let's find a way to coexist. You know, in spite of your potato and my potato.
Okay.
But that's how I got into jazz. So my dad was a jazz collector, and I was his only child. So he didn't have a son. So he used to teach me everything. He used to teach me I could dance. I could do the dance. I can't do it anymore because I'm out of practice. And he would host his friends. They would play the music. He would call me. I would dance for them. They'd give me money. You know. So I grew up a lot around music because my paternal side is very strong musically. Yeah. So that's how I.
No, never mind, because I know my producers are spontaneous.
Yeah.
When you're talking about that hard body, they will show it on air. And you're talking about Ella Fitzgerald. There's a song in the background right now as it plays as we're signing off.
Okay.
But I'm disappointed that you're playing Ella Fitzgerald was reading the Bible.
Why?
I thought you'd choose one book, you know, different political book. You know, are you a religious person, by the way?
Oh, absolutely.
You
it's
are.
my life. The Bible is
Holy,
my
holy.
life. It's
Are you
my
belong?
life.
Do you belong to a certain religion, or you just believe God is there?
I'm Christian.
Oh, you're Christian.
I grew up Christian. When I was younger, I was Lutheran.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I left the Lutheran church after I was confirmed. You know, you go through the economy, so yeah, I did all of that. And after that, I needed more, and I wasn't getting it. I've got no issues with the Lutheran church. In fact, my mom is there. She's gone back to it, and I'm going. I support her being there. It's a lovely church. I love how it's evolved over the years. But at the time, it was just not doing it for me, and I went into charismatic churches, and that's where I've been for the latter part of my life. I don't have a church that I belong to now.
Yeah, I was about to say that you come across as that those people who believe that religion is an opium for the masses, and you just believe there's God. But you have a problem with religions because, I mean, if there's one God, why there should be a whole lot of religions coming in?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with religions. I wouldn't say that. I practice religion differently. You know, I pray daily.
Okay.
Yeah, I make sure.
You do enough to connect to God.
I have to.
Yeah.
I have to because, look, if I tell you, we don't have time to talk about my spiritual journey, right? I got into politics because of conversations with God. Difficult conversations that I need you to close down your business and go to school. It's a difficult conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. And the week of crying about Alex, I turned to him and I said, why am I crying? I can't stop crying. What's going on? What are you trying to tell me? And that's how the pull into Joburg Council came. So a lot of what I do is actually informed by what happens in the prayer closet. You can't detach those two things. For me, I don't do anything without asking him. And if I'm not sure, sometimes I tarry in the prayer closet until I'm sure. You know, so it's for me it's a lifestyle. It's not about going to church on a Sunday. And yes, I visit many churches on Sundays. I wanted to go actually today, but I didn't wake up early enough. And sometimes for the kids it's also good, you know, for kids to get into a structure and learn about church. But for me, my relationship with him is more direct. And I have a lot of men and women of God around me. Prophet Ralo Kholela in the Baal, great general of the faith. I have great respect for him. I talk to him. I discuss issues with him. I get guidance from him. I go to his church to fellowship. I even preach at his church sometimes. I preached for Youth Month. And so on. So I've got people around me like that. And yeah, that's how I practice religion. I love it. I'm a free spirit. And I love God, you know, and I understand that I'm here because he brought me here and he's given me an earthly assignment and I need to be faithful with it. And that is why I live and breathe every day.
Oh, hallelujah to that, man. And then you can join me when we go to Sak. I'll talk to Sak.
Yes.
From Sakums.
Yeah,
That
Saki is my friend.
Yeah, we're coming
Yeah.
to eat that hot boat thing
Yes.
and then play Ella Fitzgerald.
Wonderful.
Whatever they play, but there must be Ella Fields there.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mphoza. Ngendlela, right?
Yeah.
I like it so relaxed like that.
It's been
People are
great.
calling in too much doctor.
Well,
Namhlanje
bona,
ukuthi, "Yeah, Mphoza,
Mphoza,
yeah,
but
Mphoza,
check it.
ufile na uthi,
Eh.
now we're rich." Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Eh.
All right, that's how we're signing off. It's Happy Days and out.